A parking space shouldn't become a body bag. I mean, I really want you to picture the scene for a second because, well, we have all been in this exact scenario.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has.
Right. You're in a massive, crowded asphalt lot. Maybe it's a sweltering summer day, and you've been circling for like 10 minutes.
Dodging the shopping cart.
Exactly. The shopping carts, pedestrians. And finally, you see those reverse lights pop on. So you put your blinker on, you claim your territory, and then out of nowhere, another car swoops in and steals the spot right out from under you.
Yeah, and the biological response in that exact moment is almost entirely involuntary. Your brain recognizes an injustice, and your cortisol spikes. Your grip on the steering wheel tightens up.
Your heart rate just skyrockets.
It really does.
Yeah.
It is a deeply frustrating, intensely common human experience.
But, for the vast majority of us, that intense biological response just kind of burns off in a few seconds. We mutter some insult inside the privacy of our own car. We put the vehicle back in drive, and we go look for a spot in the next aisle over.
Right, it ends there.
It does not end with permanent tragic consequences. Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are exploring the terrifying space where that everyday annoyance crosses the line into a lethal event.
It's a really heavy topic today.
It is. We are opening up a highly analytical piece of source material from Valortec. They're a tactical and firearms training academy based down in Florida. And the author, Herfel, breaks down the legal, psychological, and practical realities of self-defense.
Yeah, the mission here is to really examine the deadly gap between simply possessing a tool and actually possessing the emotional and legal judgment to know when to use it.
And it's a gap that is fundamentally misunderstood, I think.
Completely. When we look at how the public perceives self-defense and then how the legal system actually prosecutes it, we find two entirely different universes. Valortec's analysis is just this sobering look at how human behavior operates under extreme stress.
Right, and how the justice system measures that behavior when the stress boils over. Now, before we get into the mechanics of this, I need to make something crystal clear to you, the listener. We are analyzing highly charged topics today.
Firearms, self-defense laws, lethal force.
Yeah, all of it. And as your hosts, we operate with strict 100% neutrality. We do not take a stance on gun ownership, the Second Amendment, or, political self-defense legislation.
Exactly.
Whether you carry a firearm every single day or you have never even touched one, our goal is strictly to objectively break down Valortec's practical analysis. We're just here to help you understand the underlying logic of how these life-altering, split-second decisions are judged by the law.
Yeah, because the true value of this source material has nothing to do with picking a political side. It is a behavioral study.
Right.
It's really about dissecting the chain of events that leads a totally normal person to make a permanent decision over a temporary problem.
Okay, let's unpack this. Valortec uses a very specific inciting incident to anchor their analysis, and it's a fatal shooting that took place on June 30th, 2026. This was outside a Walmart in North Lauderdale, Florida.
Yeah, the victim was a 62-year-old man named Bart DeGuglielmo.
And the root cause of this entire tragedy was literally an argument over a parking space at 7900 West McNabb Road.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Because, when you strip away all the legal jargon, you are left with two human beings arguing over a painted rectangle on the ground.
Just a piece of asphalt.
Right. And according to the Broward Sheriff's Office, investigators and local news reports, the woman involved in the shooting actually remained at the scene. She cooperated with detectives, and her immediate explanation to law enforcement was that she acted in self-defense.
Yeah, and the details of the video footage, at least as they were described by WSVN, they paint a really chaotic picture of those final moments. The footage reportedly shows the woman standing outside her vehicle. She has a cell phone in one hand and a firearm in the other.
And she points the gun.
Right, she points it, tells DeGuglielmo to walk away. And the description notes that he appears to follow her around another vehicle, then he walks away, but then returns to the immediate area, and that is the exact moment he's shot.
Now, we need to echo a very strong disclaimer that Valortec includes in their analysis here. Describing the events of a video clip is not a legal verdict.
No, of course not.
The Broward County State Attorney's Office carries the burden of determining criminal charges. Valortec is not conducting, a trial by internet here.
Right.
Instead, they're using this specific dynamic, the argument, the introduction of the gun, the failure to disengage as a teaching moment regarding what they call the illusion of preparedness.
I want to dig into that concept of the illusion of preparedness because, reading through the source, I kept thinking about how people treat fire extinguishers.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. You go to the hardware store, you buy a red canister, you stick it under your kitchen sink,
Yeah.
and you suddenly feel this sense of absolute security. You assume that just because you own the physical object, you are fully prepared to fight a four-alarm structural fire.
Right, which is crazy.
But the object doesn't teach you how to read smoke patterns or how to avoid a backdraft or, when the fire has grown too large and you just need to evacuate. How does Valortec differentiate between having a gun and actually being prepared?
Well, Valortec makes a very similar, incredibly harsh observation about firearms. Carrying a gun is merely a logistical choice.
Just logistics.
Exactly. It does not magically bestow tactical awareness, emotional control, or legal knowledge upon the person carrying it. The physical tool only ensures that whatever consequences arise from your actions will be permanent.
Wow.
True preparedness is a cognitive state.
Mm.
It requires an understanding that the very second a lethal tool enters an environment, the margin for human error completely evaporates.
So, if the shooter is claiming self-defense in this parking lot dispute, we really have to look at what the law actually considers defense. Because I suspect there's a massive canyon between the actual text of the law and what the general public assumes the law allows them to do.
Oh, it's a huge canyon.
For instance, what does the law say about the difference between, shoving someone away from you and pointing a firearm at them?
So Florida law draws a very stark, incredibly defined boundary between non-deadly force and deadly force. Non-deadly force might be a physical push to create distance if someone is aggressively crowding your personal space.
Right, just getting them out of your face.
Exactly. But deadly force operates in an entirely different legal stratosphere. The law dictates that deadly force is only justified when a person reasonably believes it is necessary to prevent imminent death.
Okay.
Or, great bodily harm, or the imminent commission of a forcible felony.
But see, that word imminent seems to be the linchpin of the entire concept. But imminent is one of those words that feels subjective. I mean, if someone is screaming in your face in a parking lot, your brain might feel an imminent threat to your safety, or at least to your pride.
And that's where people get into trouble. Valortec strips away the subjectivity of that word. In a legal context, imminent means right now.
Like this exact second.
Yes. It means an attack is actively unfolding or unavoidably about to happen in that exact millisecond. It does not mean you feel uncomfortable.
Right.
It does not mean the other person is angry. It doesn't mean they are insulting you or that they won't leave you alone or that the argument has become highly volatile. Valortec is brutal on this point. Feeling disrespected in a Walmart parking lot does not legally translate to an imminent threat of great bodily harm.
Let me push back on this a bit, or at least play devil's advocate for the public perception here. Because we are constantly exposed to the phrase stand your ground in our culture. You see it debated on the news, you see it in movies.
Oh, read it in the comment sections of every viral altercation video.
Exactly. People treat the phrase stand your ground like it's a magic invincibility star in a video game. The cultural osmosis tells us that if you are in the right and you are in a public space, you absolutely do not have to back down from an argument. Doesn't stand your ground mean you don't have to back down from an argument?
What's fascinating here is, this is perhaps the most dangerous misunderstanding of self-defense law in the country. Valortec tackles this myth directly to explain why the cultural perception is so fundamentally flawed.
Okay, so what does it actually mean?
States with no duty to retreat, language in their statutes like Florida, they are simply saying that if you are facing a legitimate, imminent threat of death or great bodily harm,
Right.
and you are not engaged in criminal activity in a place you have a right to be, you are not legally required to run away before you use justified force to save your life.
So the law is essentially saying you don't have to try to outrun an attacker who is actively trying to kill you.
Precisely. But what Valortec explicitly notes is that having no duty to retreat does not grant you permission to escalate a conflict. It does not give you a legal license to, in their words, stand in the argument. You cannot use the concept to stand your ground to turn a verbal dispute over a parking space into an armed confrontation just because you refuse to lose face.
So you can't just plant your feet and say, I'm not leaving.
Exactly. If the core problem is your bruised ego, the only legal solution is to walk away. The justice system does not reward pride or stubbornness.
So the law essentially demands that you swallow your pride. It's asking you to walk away from someone who might be totally in the wrong, insulting you and acting erratically, because walking away is the only way to ensure the situation doesn't escalate into a life or death legal trap.
A firearm is the absolute last resort answer to an immediate, unavoidable, deadly force problem. It is never designed to be the first answer to a verbal conflict.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's talk about the exact second someone decides to ignore that advice and introduce a gun into a shouting match.
Oh, man.
Because we see this in viral videos all the time. Two people are screaming at each other, and one person pulls a weapon, not to shoot, but just to show it. I hypothesize that in the heat of the moment, the human brain starts treating the gun like a psychological remote control.
A remote control.
Yeah, they think, I am losing control of this argument. If I show this weapon, I will command the situation. The other person will get scared, they will calm down, and they will back off. How does the law view the gun as a command tool?
The law views that behavior as a criminal act.
Really?
Yeah. Valortec brings up the legal concept of improper exhibition of a firearm. If you display a weapon in a rude, careless, angry, or threatening manner, and is not a moment of necessary self-defense, you have just committed a first-degree misdemeanor.
Wow.
The psychological remote control theory is a massive fallacy. A gun does not calm down a parking lot argument, it militarizes it.
You are taking a dispute over asphalt and literally turning it into a combat zone.
And you are simultaneously creating a deadly force record. Valortec warns that the very second the gun leaves the holster, the legal temperature of the event explodes. You are no longer just two angry people. Every single action from that millisecond forward is evidence.
The camera is rolling.
Always. The speed of your draw, the direction your muzzle is pointing, the aggressive words you are shouting, your failure to simply get in your car and drive away. Investigators, prosecutors, and a jury will eventually dissect all of it frame by frame. The security camera in the parking lot doesn't record your adrenaline or your bruised ego. It only records the timeline of your escalation.
So if you are the one who escalates a screaming match by introducing a lethal weapon, you must fundamentally change your legal standing in the situation. Valortec refers to this as the aggressor trap.
Right. The aggressor problem is a terrifying legal reality for anyone who tries to use a weapon to win an argument. The law limits the justification for self-defense if you are the one who initially provokes the threat of force.
Even if you end up having to defend yourself later.
Well, there are highly specific, narrow exceptions. For example, if you realize you made a mistake, you withdraw in good faith, and you clearly communicate that you want to stop fighting.
Okay.
But the other person relentlessly continues to attack you. But generally speaking, if you introduce the gun prematurely just to intimidate someone, you become the aggressor in the eyes of the law.
So your claim of self-defense just vanishes because you are the one who brought lethal force to a verbal fight. The jury isn't just going to look at the moment the trigger was pulled and ask, were you scared in that specific second? They're going to rewind the tape and ask, did your conduct turn a totally avoidable verbal conflict into a deadly force event?
The legal system evaluates the totality of the circumstances. You cannot instigate a lethal environment and then claim you were a victim of the environment you created.
Which brings our focus back to the root cause of this particular tragedy in North Lauderdale. We are talking about a piece of asphalt, a parking space. We really need to analyze the profound disconnect between what people feel protective over and what the law actually allows them to defend with lethal force, because property and human life are treated very differently.
They are. The law does recognize a person's right to use force in defense of their property. But we run into that massive legal distinction again. You can only justify deadly force when you reasonably believe it is necessary to prevent the imminent commission of a forcible felony.
So we need to understand what a forcible felony actually is. I mean, the statutes generally define forcible felonies as severe, highly violent crimes. We are talking about murder, manslaughter, carjacking, kidnapping, sexual battery, or aggravated assault.
That is the specific legal universe where deadly force is justified. Valortec emphasizes a brutal reality here. A parking space is not a forcible felony. Someone blocking your car is not a forcible felony. Someone cutting you off in traffic or, needing to be taught a lesson about respect is not a forcible felony. Treating a dispute over a parking spot as a lethal threat is legally reckless.
When we look at all of these warnings about ego, escalation, and the legal reality of self-defense, it becomes very clear that Valortec is offering a sharp, almost uncomfortable critique of their own industry. The firearms and tactical training industry is massive, and Valortec seems to be pointing a finger right back at it.
Yeah. The author points out a deeply ingrained habit within the firearms industry. It worships shooting skill while almost completely ignoring decision-making.
Like practically non-existent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The market is completely saturated with content focusing on the fast draw, achieving tight bullet groupings on a stationary paper target, buying the latest tactical gear. But the industry largely ignores what Valortec calls legal maturity.
So, what does this all mean? To bring in another analogy, it feels like a driving school that teaches a teenager how to drive a 200-mile-per-hour race car. They hand the kid the keys, they teach them how to maximize the horsepower, but they completely forget to teach them where the brakes are or what the speed limits are.
Yeah, or how to navigate a crowded intersection without crashing.
Exactly. You have given this person the mechanical ability to cause immense destruction, but zero judgment on how to navigate the real world safely.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that analogy perfectly captures the thesis of the source material. Marksmanship without judgment is nothing more than liability with a better grouping.
That's a great way to put it.
A person might believe they are highly trained because they can hit a bullseye at 7 yards on a perfectly calm, flat shooting range. But if they have no idea when they are legally permitted to press that trigger in a chaotic, unpredictable, real-world environment, their physical skill is actually a danger to themselves and others.
They know exactly how to shoot, but they have absolutely no idea when not to shoot.
Valortec argues that true competence is about threat recognition. It is about understanding the nuances of human movement. It involves managing your physical distance from a potential threat so you have time to react without resorting to lethal force.
And giving verbal commands.
Yes, the ability to give clear, unambiguous verbal commands while under stress. But most importantly, true competence is knowing that restraint, choosing to walk away from a screaming match, choosing to let someone else have the parking space, is often the highest form of tactical skill.
Right.
The most dangerous armed citizen is not the one with terrible aim. It is the one who believes the weapon is the solution to their bruised ego.
Because the person who lacks that emotional restraint isn't actually safer just because they are carrying a physical tool. As the article so chillingly puts it, they are simply carrying consequences.
Every single round fired in the real world has a destination. It has a complex legal destination, a profound moral destination, a devastating financial destination, and a permanent human destination. Responsible ownership goes far beyond the mechanics of the tool. It requires an intimate knowledge of the law, a commitment to avoiding avoidable conflicts at all costs, and the absolute control of one's own ego.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today for you listening. We started with an everyday, incredibly mundane annoyance, the universal frustration of fighting over a parking spot at a store. And we followed that thread all the way down into the profound legal and moral weight of human escalation.
We really unpacked a lot.
We did. We examined how the justice system dissects human ego, how the word imminent truly means right this very second, and how the genuine definition of self-defense has far less to do with the physical tool you might carry and much more to do with your emotional restraint.
This raises an important question, though. This deep dive into Valortec's analysis brings up a really structural issue about the culture of self-defense. We've explored their very sharp critique of the multi-billion-dollar firearms industry, an industry that is incredibly successful at selling cool gear, fast draws, and marksmanship, but routinely fails to address legal maturity and the vital art of de-escalation.
That critique leaves me with a final thought for you to mull over as we wrap up today. If restraint, emotional control, and the willingness to walk away from a bruised ego are actually the vital skills that keep people out of prison and keep people alive, how might the entire self-defense industry need to restructure its business model?
Yeah, how do they pivot?
Exactly. How do you successfully market and sell restraint and judgment to a consumer base that right now is primarily opening its wallet for speed and accuracy? It is a massive paradigm shift, but it is one that could literally save lives. Because at the end of the day, no matter how frustrated you are, no matter how disrespected you feel in the moment, a parking space should never become a body bag. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the realities of escalation. We will catch you on the next one.